podcast about something where each week we dive deep into whatever it is we find interesting. I'm your host, Calvin, and joining me from an LA courtroom, it's your co-host, Nick Richardson.
What's up?
You can't talk a lot in a courtroom. I get it. You'll be held in contempt. You'll get arrested. We're back.
What's up, Your Honor? I gotta finish
I'm not
it with
a judge.
that.
There you go.
We're in court.
Yeah,
I'm ready,
we're back.
man.
Well, you're in court. I'm not. I'm just here. All right. We're back. I'm going to say it again, in case somebody didn't hear me say it the first 3 times. We've been gone for a while, just doing some stuff on our own, vacations, other things going on. But we're back. We told you we'd be back, and we're back. We got something special, something I didn't think we'd ever really get into because it's not my cup of tea. My wife really likes it, but it's really big, and we're going to dive into it. We're dipping our toes into the world of true crime for a very special episode, one time only. Unless you guys really like it, then we might do more.
Yeah, we might have something. We can figure something else out.
Yeah, if you guys love it, let us know, because then we'll do more. But we're not. I don't plan to do it very much. But if this works out and people like it, then we might. But we want to make sure that for this one, that may be the only one we ever do, we came with a good case. Do you think we got a good case?
I think we got a great case.
It's
I will say
crazy.
though, it was let me just say it frankly, it was a bit of a mind fuck.
Yeah.
To kind of dive into it, and for something so serious, I don't know, it was almost, I can't even think of a word to say, but it was almost it's heavy, man.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe it.
That makes sense to me, and there's a lot going on. Just to put it out there, we're covering the case of the death of Jennifer Crawford in Los Angeles. This happened in 2007, and honestly, the case just gets crazier and crazier as we go through it.
Yeah, it's the epitome of a mindfuck.
Absolutely. Before we get too deep into what actually happened in the case, I just want to take time to note that I know the true crime genre, and this is not our usual genre. We usually do basically everything other than this. Yep. But the true crime genre of podcasting has come under fire lately for, not citing their sources properly. We tried to make sure that everything we got has a good source behind it. We used a combination of court documents we found and then books written by the prosecutor of this case and the perpetrator of the crime. And you can find a full list of the sources. There's a link in the bio of this episode. Now, if you click the link, it'll take you to our full source list, just so we don't have to list them out one by one here. But we sourced. It's in the link. Go check it out if you care
Please
that much.
Yeah, please do. And yeah, man.
We don't want to come under fire for not sourcing correctly, because honestly, we don't do this enough. And if you guys get mad at us this one time, then nobody will ever listen to us talk about Harry Potter.
Well, and that's what I need in my life right now.
Exactly. Like, those are the things I want to talk about. So if you guys don't listen to that, then that's going to be trouble. So let's get into the case. We're going to try and work through it chronologically. It might be a little hard. We might have to bounce around a little bit because it is kind of a crazy case and it takes some detours here and there. And we'll try and take detours as needed to just dive deep into things as they come up.
We'll do our best.
So Nick,
we'll weave you this tale, guys.
We're going to weave it. We're going to do our best. Again, not our forte. So if you're joining us for the first time, we know there's a lot of true crime fans out there. So if you're joining us for the first time, cut us some slack here. This is our first foray into it. We don't know how often we're going to do this.
Consider it a special episode.
It is a special episode. So let's start with the night of the crime. Jennifer Crawford is found gravely wounded in her Los Angeles home on the night of April 20th, 2007. The police responded because the family's gardener, very rich family, they had heard gunshots in the house or from around the house, I guess. They didn't know where it was.
And then I will say, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but which is,
please do.
Where this neighborhood is, it's a wealthy neighborhood.
Yeah. No doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is very out of the ordinary.
It's not a gunshotty neighborhood.
No, this isn't, an area of bad taste. We'll just say that.
They're not. I've been watching The Wire a lot lately. They're not in West Baltimore where like gunshots are heard every 30 seconds. So like this was, like you said, very out of the ordinary. the gardener hears it, he calls in right away because that's not something you're used to hearing. 4 gunshots he heard. So you can't mistake that for a car backfiring.
No, absolutely not, especially in a neighborhood where no cars backfire. I
Yeah,
imagine they
because they're
all,
Cadillacs and
yeah,
BMWs and so forth and so on.
stuff like that. It's one of those upscale
Aston
neighborhoods,
Martins.
evidenced by the fact they have a gardener.
Yeah, I don't have a gardener.
I don't.
The podcast money is not that good.
I
Believe
don't
it or
even
not.
have a garden for a gardener to garden.
Yeah, that's rough. So the gardener had reported to the police that both Jennifer and her husband Ted were in the home at the time of the gunshots. He saw them both come home when they came home, and he hadn't seen anyone since then leave or come in. So he heard the gunshots. Nobody leaves or comes in after that. And then the police arrive on the scene a little bit later. They also report they've got kind of the road cased. They report nobody's left the home since they arrived. So again, husband and wife in the house. That's all we know. And gunshots. Nobody leaves since then. The police get there. They realize that they're dealing with a potential hostage situation. And this is when Lieutenant Rob Nunnally appears on the scene. He is there. He's kind of like a hostage negotiation specialist, so he's there to help with the potential hostage situation. He's going to be important later.
Absolutely.
It's important that he shows up and that he's there.
Well, I want to say he's the highest rank, probably anywhere near there, and so therefore he would lead the investigation at the initial point of attack, and that's kind of how he got involved, as well as the hostage negotiation. Even though I'm not quite sure of his background in hostage negotiation, I couldn't find anything
nothing
on
went
that.
too deep into that, but I think, like you said, he's just the highest ranking official there. They need someone to go in to talk to whoever is in the home with the gun, So he goes in, he calls, they got like a gate on the front door, goes through the gate, he enters the home, and he finds Jennifer's body. That's a bad Megan Fox movie. If anybody wants to check that out, you probably shouldn't. But so Nunnally finds the body. He checks for a pulse or whatever. Appears to still be alive, but has suffered a gunshot wound to the face. And Ted, in the police reports, it said that Ted is standing there, gun in hand, confesses that he shot Jennifer in the face to Nunnally. And then, for some reason, a scuffle breaks out between Nunnally and Ted. That's just from the initial reporting of what we know what happens of Nunnally's initial report. He says that the scuffle breaks out there.
Which is, I mean, make that what you will. But I found that odd when I initially read that, and
yeah, to me, somebody's got to be an aggressor there. If he's just standing there with the gun, why does a scuffle? And he's confessing, why is there a scuffle? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, in my mind, if a perp, a suspect was standing across from me, there appears to be a dead body, or I'm sorry,
a near dead body,
a near dead body with a gunshot wound to the face. So, in my mind, my assumption would be this person's either on their way out the door or knocking on it, about to walk through. And to have the suspect there with a gun and not fire on him, I didn't understand. I didn't understand that. Especially, I mean, I kind of looked at Nunnally as trying to disarm him, and it kind of broke out into a scuffle, but
yeah, that must be what it is. That's the only logical conclusion you can jump to here, is that he's got the gun, and maybe Nunnally asks him for the gun and he doesn't want to hand it to him, so he kind of forces it from him. I don't know. I wasn't there, obviously.
Well, his training kind of kicks in. I'm guessing that was his first reaction.
It's just get the gun at all costs. That could be. And obviously, we're going to find out more of this when we get into the court case. But there is more to the story when we get there. But Ted is arrested and he's charged with attempted murder. Jennifer is recovered by the paramedics and taken to a local hospital where she's basically put on life support because she's now in a coma from the gunshot wound.
Yeah, that's
still
a tough break. Tough break.
Yeah. You can't even shoot somebody point blank in the face correctly, apparently, Ted. Come on.
Which is, based on his background, is hard to believe.
Yeah, so let's talk about Ted.
Let's do it.
He's Jennifer's husband. He's just like this super rich dude. He's basically an aerospace engineer. He owns his own firm that specializes in designing airplanes, and he's described by other people. He's always like building, putting things together, taking them apart, doodling like trinkets and things like that. So he's always got his hands moving. He's always thinking, and from what we've read of other people's impressions of him, he's eccentric but careful and appears to always like kind of be planning something.
Like he plays chess, and he's
Yeah.
always three moves ahead. And
Or at least he thinks he's 3 moves ahead. He from what I got, he's one of those guys that he's always the smartest guy in the room, very arrogant, just wants to be right and wants to feel like he knows more than everybody else.
Yeah, I didn't come across very high, opinions of Ted Crawford. And as an older man, I think he liked the finer things in life, evidenced by, what we see throughout the court case. And, Jennifer, I think, was one of those.
Absolutely. And being one of those finer things in life, it comes out, later as we go through the course, we'll see this. At some point, Ted has discovered that his wife is having an affair. Obviously, to me, this is why he shot her. He found out about this affair. He doesn't like that.
No, he felt betrayed.
And can you blame him? For feeling betrayed? I guess you could blame him for shooting someone.
That's
kind
of
cool.
where my mind goes. It's like, but you shot her.
Yeah, there are other ways to handle your anger.
Yeah.
So, I guess the next important thing to talk about, now that we know the major players, we know Ted, we know Jennifer. I guess we don't know much about Jennifer other than that she's married to Ted and she's having an affair. She kind of likes to live the high life, socialite type. So, but let's move into the trial.
Let's do it.
So Ted gets an initial arraignment, and this is where it starts to get weird all of a sudden. On the scene, he confesses to the murder, but at the initial arraignment, he pleads not guilty to the crime and decides he doesn't want to be represented by an attorney. He's going to represent himself.
Yeah.
And he's not a lawyer. He has no lawyer school. He knows nothing about the... Is that not the proper term?
I'm sorry, man.
Again, this is not the thing we do.
I'm sorry. My bad, people.
But he's going to represent himself, which is pretty crazy.
Well, let's just say it out loud. This is where, it's just getting started with this guy.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You're accused of murder. And
that you confess to.
And there's witnesses to that confession with the murder weapon in your hand.
Well, he confessed once on the scene and in a separate interrogation.
Yeah.
With murder weapon in hand.
Everything points to him. And
yeah.
No.
I guess why not represent yourself? If at this point you're going to jail anyways, why do you pay a lawyer for that?
Either way, besides the fact this guy he's a very rich man. Having his own aerospace firm, very rich man. He probably could have afforded the best lawyers in the country, but I think that speaks to his arrogance.
Well, let's talk about these best lawyers in the country. Such in the prosecutor who gets assigned to this case is the young Willie Beecham. And Willie Beecham is this, he's kind of like this hot shot attorney, and this is like, he's on his way out the door. In his book, he writes that he was about to move on to Wooten and Sims, which is a very large private firm making the big bucks. And this was basically 1 foot out the door. He gets saddled with this case while he's working for the DA's office, and it's supposed to be kind of a easy home run, no problems with it. Again, they've got the confession, they've got everything they need. It's supposed to be easy peasy for them, and I don't think it goes that way.
It did not work out that way. It couldn't have gone worse for Willie Beecham.
No,
especially with 1 foot out the door, and you're looking at Easy Street. Willie Beecham is extremely highly regarded. His book was really fascinating.
That's why he's getting, signed. talking in like football terms, he's getting signed to this new firm, like he's a free agent or something. But basically, he gets a job offer at this big firm, Wooten and Sims, and like he's very highly sought after at this point. He's got a great wins record, which to me, like, and that's kind of why he agrees to stay on this trial. Crawford, in his arraignment, requests that Beecham stay on, which is a weird thing also. And Beecham agrees to because it's supposed to be an easy win, and he's very proud of his wins record. Which, like, to me, that's always bothered me about the legal system is why do wins matter? Wins shouldn't matter. It should matter on what should matter is getting things right, right? So, like, I don't think lawyers should be incentivized based on how many times they win in court. They should be incentivized on getting things right.
Well, if you look at it,
that's just my 2 cents on it. This is why we don't do crime very often, because like these kind of things bother me. Of like, this guy, he's been accused in his past of like fudging his stats or passing difficult cases on to other prosecutors so he doesn't have to deal with them. And he just, I don't like that. Like, I just want somebody who's gonna get it right.
I mean, at one point his record was at like 97% for his cases. So I mean, he was adept, but at the same time, if we're putting it in black and white, I think it is, I guess, right, for lack of a better term, when if that's their goal, is to do something that may not necessarily be morally right, and they achieve that, I think they're in the end right, which constitutes winning. And I guess both sides want to do that, and he's no different. Willie Beecham has a bit of arrogance in him too.
Well, yeah. And to be a hotshot lawyer, as I said, you kind of have to.
I don't know. I've never met some punk ass hotshot lawyer. I've never met any hotshot lawyers, but.
So the next weird thing that happens, it's just weird thing after weird thing in this case. I promise you, just stay with us. It all comes together in a weird frenzy at the end. So Ted Crawford requests that he go straight to trial. Doesn't want to waste anyone's time. He knows Beecham's got 1 foot out the door. So everybody agrees, and basically they go straight to trial on this. No intervening steps, which I don't know what all of those would be, but they just go straight to it.
Well, from what I've come to understand, there's some kind of pre-trial or just an arraignment. I think that it's called. I don't remember off the top of my head. I should probably have that term in front of me. Maybe those of you out there who know better than I can let us know at APA.
I'm sure we'll get yelled at by a lot of crime fans because we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So I'm good with that.
That's quite all right.
Let us know at APA something on Twitter.
Do it.
We're there. As we move towards the trial, Beecham in his book, he writes that the gun that was collected as evidence that was taken from Ted Crawford on the scene of the crime has never actually been fired. So now they can't find the murder weapon, even though they thought they had it in the house when they went. And, he at his house, as they're doing evidence discovery, all of that, they find that, they find the gun case and everything like that. There's 4 bullets missing from that case, and, 4 spent casings were found in the house that match Crawford's gun, but the gun has never actually been fired.
Yeah. Weird situation there. Nope.
Yeah, so either there's a second gun that he's hidden really, really well, or there's something going on. There's no prints on the gun or the shell casing, so they think they have all this evidence going into trial, and then all of a sudden, days before the trial, they realize they have no evidence.
I mean, if they can't directly tie it to him.
Other than witness testimony.
Yep.
At this point, Willie Beecham thinks he's screwed, but also still thinks he has a pretty good case because he's got signed confessions and he's got witness testimony. There's not much to this case, except there's no murder weapon. So, there's still a chance for him.
And at the same time, in his book, he mentioned that he fully believed there was a murder weapon in that house somewhere.
Right. So it just had to be discovered.
Absolutely. And they assign gargantuan amounts of manpower when it comes to LA to finding this second murder weapon, or just,
the actual murder weapon. Yeah. So yeah, maybe he has 2 of the exact same gun and he's hidden one, like I said, really, really well. We don't know. Nobody ever left the house. It's got to be in the house somewhere. So we think, right?
Absolutely.
So trial starts. We get to actual witness testimony. The defense calls no witnesses because obviously, again, Ted Crawford did not go to lawyer school, so he has no idea what the fuck he's doing. So there are several witnesses called by the prosecution. Not a ton though, because again, it's pretty straightforward. So the first person we hear from in the trial is Ciro, the Crawford's gardener. He's the one that heard the gunshots. He testifies to how careful of a person Ted Crawford is with his car and just with his life in general. He testifies that he saw him come home that night at, I believe, like right around 5 o'clock or just before 5 o'clock, which was early for him, so that's why it kind of stood out. And then he testified again that he heard and reported the gunshots and that he never saw anyone leave the house afterwards.
Yeah,
That was basically his whole testimony.
it it's pretty damning. It may not, it wasn't long, but it was fucking damning. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, he sees Crawford come home early. He sees Jennifer Crawford come home later. He hears gunshots. No one leaves the house. He's the gardener's there all day, sees no one else come in or leave until the police get there. The first responding officer, Gonzalo Menendez, he is our next witness in the case. He testifies when the officers arrived on scene. It was 5:42 p.m. on April 20th, 2007. They were aware of a potential hostage situation, so they weren't going to go in. And that's when they called in Lieutenant Nunnally. And they basically sat outside and waited for Nunnally. And during that time, he testifies that he witnessed no one entering or leaving the premises.
Absolutely. They had quite a few responding officers, which is natural in these, higher end neighborhoods, and they were able to, which he also stated in his testimony, surround the entirety of the home, all four corners. Which
Like really nobody can get past them.
Exactly. So I mean, they've covered every point of
That's
entry.
Good job, LAPD.
Yeah,
Shout
it's
out.
well trained. Shout out.
Our next witness is Dr. Marion King. And Dr. King, she comes in. It feels weird saying Dr. King.
I know, man. You said that, and I'm like,
Dr. Marion King. We'll go with her full name so it doesn't sound like Martin Luther King Jr. has come back from the dead to testify at this trial. Dr. Marion King, she testifies basically about Jennifer's state after she's injured, after she's shot, how the gunshot entered her head, where it is, what her status is right now. Basically, the bullet is lodged in her skull, and if it's removed, there's a 90% chance that she's going to die. So currently they have her in a coma state, and she's likely to remain that way until something intervenes, whether they choose to pull the plug on her or try and remove the bullet, and that would probably change things too.
Absolutely. I mean, either way, Dr. Marion King,
Dr. Marion King, yes,
was correct in stating that due to these wounds, Jennifer would never be the same, regardless if she woke up or did not.
A very, very slim chance that she would wake up from this.
Yes. So it's, also more damning testimony that this is a lethal wound applied with the, the intent to kill.
The intent to kill, right? Which is that's important for trials like these, I assume.
Absolutely. Intense. Intent is a big deal when it comes to, cases like this.
So during all of these witness testimonies, there's one more witness that comes up, but during all these witness testimonies, Ted Crawford is pretty much just sitting there doodling in his legal pad, looking befuddled. There are times when the judge prompts him to, try to object,
yeah.
or
Object.
just like, speak up for himself, defend himself, and, he does nothing. He just doodles. He provides no cross-examination, anything like that. Just sitting there letting everybody tell their stories. And then we get to the next witness, the final witness of this part of the trial, Lieutenant Rob Nunnally.
The man who took the confession, as well as the murder weapon from the
alleged
defendant.
murder weapon.
Yeah, the alleged murder weapon from the defendant.
So Nunnally comes in. He testifies that Crawford confessed to the shooting, to shooting his wife after he put that. So, Nunnally comes in. Crawford confesses. He puts down his gun, and then he also says that Crawford did not seem impaired in any way. He was, of sound mind when he's confessing. And he even quotes Crawford in saying, "It's like I just suddenly snapped. I got the gun and I shot my wife. I shot her in the head." So that was a direct quote from Nunnally said by Ted Crawford. Again, confession right there. And
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
when Ted Crawford finally decides to speak up. He raises an objection, which he does so improperly because, again, no lawyer school here, no idea what he's doing. But the judge lets him go on, and again, he doesn't know legal terms for anything. He's asked to try and explain it in layman's terms. And do you want to tell us what he said?
He basically claimed that Nunnally was fucking the victim.
Yeah, that's a direct quote there.
Direct quote in a
Direct
courtroom.
courtroom quote is Nunnally was fucking the victim. And obviously, this is a huge shock to everyone who's there. Nunnally actually attempts to flee from the courtroom while he's on the stand. Like, he doesn't dismiss or anything. He just gets up and bolts. He's obviously detained by bailiffs. What I don't get is in this trial is how's that not contempt?
Well,
Or
we
go ahead.
gotta mention something here. He was making a beeline straight for Ted.
Oh, was he?
Yes, absolutely. Or at least that's how it came across from the courtroom. I almost said courtroom log.
I mean, there's a courtroom log. The stenographer's sitting there typing.
Stenographer, yes, from the
Yeah.
courtroom to stenographer records.
Right. So but still, how is that, to me, that's contempt, right? You can't
That
just
would,
get up off the stand and try and attack someone.
I would
I mean,
view that as contempt.
maybe he was and just, that was left out of things, or I glossed over that part, but I guess I don't fully, and again, hit us on Twitter. I don't understand the ramifications of contempt of court. Do you get your own trial date? Is it like traffic court where you just go and if you show up, you get off with it? Do you go to jail right away? Like, I don't know how any of that works.
Or is it like a tally system?
Yeah.
Do they just strike three, bitch? You're going down.
Or is because Nunnally's a lieutenant in the LAPD, does he, get off easy there? I don't know.
I imagine he has some leeway, especially as the man who took the confession of Ted.
Well, but so that's where it becomes interesting. The confessions get thrown out now. Once the alleged affair is brought up, the judge decides in a closed door meeting that basically all of Crawford's confessions, the one at the scene and during the interrogation, they've got to be thrown out because they were technically improperly coerced because the person he gave the confessions to was sleeping with his wife.
Yeah, he was under duress when he gave confessions. Therefore,
Apparently,
they are
that's
invalid.
frowned upon.
Yeah, that's a no-no, especially, in police departments everywhere and every other level of government.
Don't sleep with someone's wife who you're trying to get a confession out of.
Yeah, don't do that.
There you go. So at this point, no one knows what to do. The trial is suspended for several weeks to allow finding of new evidence, just because everything from that everything that Nunnally collected is now fucked. I think that's the proper legal term.
Basically. And I think everyone was just scrambling at that point, so that was the only decision that the court really had.
Right. And so at this point, the district attorney's office decides to remove Beecham from the case and just tells him, look, move on to your new job. We don't need you screwing this up anymore because this was supposed to be a layup, and now it's just this crazy, crazy case. And
it made him look bad.
Yeah, he's making everyone look bad by not being able to handle this layup of a case. So he's told, just move on. We'll give it to somebody else. Don't worry about it.
It's terrible, especially compounded by the fact that he refused to move on, which you'd think that after working there for, I'm not entirely sure how long Beecham worked there, but basically it launched his career. It was his platform into getting into this better job, and I mean, he's fucking them sideways for his own pride.
Yeah, and like you said, he doesn't want to move on. He won't let it go. He begs basically to be put back on the case. In his book, he claims that someone he assumes Crawford sent him broken eggshells in the mail. I don't really understand what that means, but he had the sense that Crawford was trying to fuck with him, just playing mind games with him, and it really, really just didn't sit well with him. So he got very obsessive over this case at the time.
It shook him. It shook him to his core.
Meanwhile, investigators, they're digging as deep as they can, trying to find this murder weapon. But no matter what they do, they just can't come up with anything during this couple weeks suspension.
Due to due to not being able to find a murder weapon, Beecham had the bright idea to take it upon himself to investigate Crawford and Nunnally further. At this point, I didn't really consider him an unbiased investigator.
Well, absolutely. He's super obsessive over this case, and he's doing everything he can to point a finger at Crawford, who now looks like, there may be another suspect in this case. You got to think Nunnally, he might have done something here.
It's quite possibly. I mean, it could be a setup. We don't know.
Exactly. So, and again, Beecham, like, he feels like Crawford is fucking with him, playing mind games, so he's doing everything in his power to point the finger at Crawford, and he's got blinders on, and it's like you said, it's really hard for him to be unbiased. But at the same time, the regular investigators aren't finding anything either. So in his mind, something needs to be done, right? So he interviews Nunnally. He finds out that they had an arrangement. He and Jennifer had an arrangement, and they met anonymously every week at a resort. No names were exchanged. Didn't know who each other was, but they would just meet there. And through this, Nunnally believes that they were in love. I think that's a tough sell to me. I think if somebody's not even gonna let you know their name and what's going on, that's not love.
Yeah, from what Nunnally stated, Jennifer told him to refer to her as Mrs. Smith, and he was to be referred to as Mr. Smith.
Right, so, which are very bland, like generic. There's a movie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, about how these are cover names for what are they, hitmen basically, and that those are their cover names. They're just generic, bland ass names that nobody's ever gonna look twice at.
I've never met anyone with the last name Smith.
I do. I have a friend named Chris Smith.
No
Shout out, Chris.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah, there you go.
Hate it.
And also through his research, he finds out that Ted Crawford and his wife were planning a trip for 2 weeks after the shooting occurred. Now, obviously, they didn't go on this trip, but it was supposed to be coming up right after that shooting. So, like, if they have this trip planned, which is to a remote tropical island, basically a second honeymoon from what Crawford testifies to later, why would he shoot his wife if they're planning on going on a second honeymoon?
Alibi.
Yeah, could be. Or could be
he
didn't shoot his wife.
Could be. So I mean,
it's got you asking questions at this point of what's going on. Why are these things? Everything's not falling into place as it should be to point the finger at Ted.
No, he's making it complicated. He's protected from two directions.
There's definitely some reasonable doubt coming into shape here.
It's hard not
which is important in a trial case. Reasonable
Absolutely.
doubt is always important.
I mean, that's the difference between guilty or not guilty.
Exactly. And Beecham also reviews security tapes from the getaway resort that Nunnally and Jennifer spent their time in. And in that review, he sees that Crawford was at the resort on the day the murder happened. So again, he could have had this trip planned, and then that's when he found out right there, is when he goes to that resort. Like, he found out that day, he goes to the resort to confirm it, and then something goes wrong later, right?
Absolutely.
So now you're getting less reasonable doubt. Now it's shifted back to Crawford. Like, there's so much going on in this.
Well, and unfortunately, what Beecham stated is that he knew it was Crawford, but in a court of law, it would never stand up.
Right. So there's still reasonable doubt there. And honestly, in a guilty or innocent black and white kind of state, I think I'd have to lean towards innocent right now. At this point in my I know how everything plays out. I get it. But like at this point, chronologically researching through this, like I got to think this dude's innocent. Or at least
didn't have a face.
Or at least there's reasonable doubt and you can't say he's guilty.
Exactly. I mean, if you can't definitively say, like you said, beyond a reasonable doubt if you don't have a face. So regardless of how Beecham felt in his gut, the court's not going to side with him when it came to that.
There's that. There's no actual eyewitness. There's no murder weapon or attempted murder weapon. Without Jennifer waking up and pointing the finger at him, there's nothing that actually links him directly to the crime other than a coerced confession.
Confession under duress.
Yes. So then, Beecham's doing all this research, investigating everything like that. Time for the trial to start back up. Beecham finds nothing concrete, as we've just talked about. There's nothing that he can hold on up against him and say, this guy definitely did it. So Crawford, in the little bit of legalese that he knows, moves for a motion of acquittal due to insufficient evidence. The judge checks with Beecham. Again, he restates he has no further evidence, and the judge basically declares that the motion for acquittal is granted, and Crawford walks free at this point.
Walks free, man. Unbelievable.
He's seemingly gotten away with attempted murder, but at the same time, his gun wasn't fired. He's planning a second honeymoon. There's a case to be made that he is actually innocent. He didn't do this.
In the court of law, he is innocent.
Oh, he's absolutely innocent in the court of law, but even in my brain, like there's wiggle room. Like I still got to think, like, Nunnally was there. Nunnally had the opportunity, had the motive. If something happens, maybe he's trying to attack what's his nuts? He's trying to attack Ted, and it slips and he hits Jennifer. Like, who knows? Anything could have happened here.
Quite possibly, Nunnally could have walked in, followed Jennifer home, and discovered that she was in fact a married woman, and therefore, goes into maybe he was firing on Ted, accidentally hit Jennifer. You're right. It definitely brings some doubt into the mind.
Yep. And on the other hand, not the same hand.
On the same foot, son.
It's really possible that Ted Crawford is way more guilty than we or anyone in that courtroom could have realized, and he's just really, really, really good at having a plan. And he'd have to be, right?
Unbelievably good.
Like, he would have had to find out about this affair months ago, plan this trip, buy 2 of the exact same gun, shoot the perfect number of bullets, wipe all the prints clean, figure out where to hide the actual gun he shot, and hand in the gun he didn't shoot. Like, that's an insane amount of planning, which, from everything we've heard from witness testimony and other people, says, he was a meticulous planner. So
it fit him, his MO.
Yeah, it's really hard this time. So Crawford, as we said, he walks free. But then something else happens. Moments after the trial, bystanders report gunshots outside the courtroom, in the courthouse, but outside of the courtroom, and officers on the scene. Nunnally has apparently shot himself in distress over losing Jennifer, and Crawford walking free.
Seeing Crawford walk free broke this man.
Yep. He really, really needed Beecham to catch him, and that didn't happen.
No, he put all his eggs in Beecham's basket.
And there was even talk, or I don't know if talk's the right word, but there are reports that he even tried to basically have Beecham plant evidence or fudge the case a little bit to make it look like Crawford is guilty. And
yeah, I couldn't find any
I couldn't find any
evidence.
Yeah.
But I found the rumors throughout, and it's
right. It's heavily theorized that Nunnally was trying to everything he could to get, Crawford committed for this. And again, to me, that speaks to maybe Nunnally had something to do this and was trying to frame someone else. Maybe he was trying to frame Crawford and was planning that that was going to be his getaway with Jennifer.
It certainly makes him look.
But things went wrong, and obviously Jennifer was not fatally but gravely wounded and put into a coma. Like that, it could be said that Nunnally had been planning this for a while and was trying to frame Ted.
He has the resources to figure out that who she was, and that she was married, etc. That thing, I mean, he could absolutely have been corrupted by jealousy, I guess is a good way to say it. And when you look at the facts, shooting himself after the loss, he wants her to
not be married, and if she won't divorce her husband, well, then he's got to do something else.
Well, he just can't take it.
Mm-hmm. So then an investigation goes into Nunnally's suicide. Obviously, during this investigation, it's actually discovered that the gun he used on himself is the same model type that Ted owned and supposedly used in the attempted murder. So it's not the exact same gun, like, obviously, but it's the same type of gun. It uses the same type of bullet. I'm not a gun person, so I don't know all the
It's the
terminologies.
same make and model.
Right, thank you. Uses
You know,
the same bullets, everything like
same
that.
ammunition.
So
45 caliber, I believe.
So this points even further to not only may be responsible, they've got the same gun, but it also points to maybe Crawford's really smart and found out not only had the same gun, so he made sure he bought that gun. Like, there's so much going on here, and I still don't know what to think.
No, absolutely not. And it goes both ways. Crawford could, like we said earlier, easily investigate Ted, find out everything there is to really. He has more resources to do so than Ted, but just based off court records and witness testimony, Ted's a brilliant guy, so he has that going for him.
Super duper rich.
I mean, yeah, that's even
more
better
resources,
than, yeah.
But he has more like legal and police force and evidence type resources. But Ted has a lot more fucking money.
Which we all know in the court system, those are basically on even footing. You'd think evidence and procedures and the rule of law would be better, but no, cash money, baby.
Cash rules everything around me.
Cash
dollar bills, y'all.
Dollar bills, y'all.
So let's talk about the fallout of
this whole case. Boy, is there some fucking fallout.
I mean, yeah, we've already talked about some of it. Obviously, Nunnally suicide, that's big, important fallout. We don't want to just gloss over that. Like, one person lost their life, another person is on their deathbed in this, and the supposed perpetrator is walking free. And since he is walking free, Ted Crawford can make the decision to euthanize Jennifer Crawford. And guess what? He chooses that. So, do you think this is a let's put her out of her misery thing, or let's tie up loose end things? Because it could go either way. If my wife were in a coma, and it was her, this would have to be a completely different, I'm not going to make this unilaterally, but in a conversation with her, if she said, no, I don't want to live in a coma for the rest of my life, I would have no problem. I'd probably have some. You can't.
What?
I'd pull that plug so damn fast.
Ooh, honey, you wouldn't even know.
No,
but no, my wife's looked at me point blank and said that.
If that was her choice, and I would have trouble coming to terms with that decision in the moment, but I would ultimately make that choice. That's her choice. So it's hard to put yourself in that situation and think well, would I do this? Is he putting her out of her misery? Or if he did this, he doesn't want her to wake up and ID him at some point.
It could go both ways, man. And that's the frustrating part about this case is it constantly is going both ways.
Yeah. But the important thing is that now that Jennifer is actually dead, they can remove the bullet.
Gotta have it.
Yep. And when they pull it, it's discovered that the bullet matches Rob Nunnally's gun. So now it looks like that Nunnally actually did this, right?
Absolutely.
And the only way I can think is in the way that we described before, is during the scuffle, kind of crime of passion type thing. He's in the house, maybe accidentally or on purpose, trying to frame Ted, but his gun matches that bullet. That bullet was fired from that gun. Beecham's not buying it though. No, this is in his book. He is still holding tight that Ted did it, and that's why he was at the resort that day. And so Beecham, he tells us in his book that he's got a new working theory about how this went down. And just stick with me here. I'm going to run through it real quick. This is Beecham's theory going into everything. Ted... What?
Theories. This shit is expansive.
Yeah. So it starts with Ted knew about the affair long before the shooting. He would have to plan all this stuff out. Ted went out of his way to buy the same gun that Nunnally had. They're standard issue LAPD guns. I'm pretty sure you can probably find that out, public record somehow, what guns they're issued. Ted bought the vacation tickets to help cover his track as an alibi, as you said before. Ted visited the resort on the day of the shooting to steal Nunnally's gun and replace it with his own. Then Ted shot his wife with Nunnally's gun when she came home. And then when Nunnally arrived on the scene to negotiate the hostage situation, he was so distraught over the loss of Jennifer that he didn't notice Ted switched the guns back. Because there was that scuffle that gave Ted the chance to switch those guns. If that scuffle doesn't happen, then there's no chance. And now that gives us a little purview into maybe why that scuffle happened. Maybe Ted instigated it in order to pull this off, you know? No one can find the murder weapon because it's sitting on Nunnally's hip throughout the trial. And nobody's going to look at him because nobody understands, you know, how deep this goes at that time. And so the only thing that in this that Ted couldn't account for was Nunnally killing himself and leaving his gun behind in evidence of his own suicide.
Which, holy fuck, the bad thing Beecham has here is he doesn't have any distinct evidence.
There's no evidence to hold him to this, and it would never hold up in trial. Well, this is what I think happened.
Which, I mean, after the course of events throughout this case, it's honestly plausible in my mind. Every step of his theory is plausible in my mind, but without the evidence, there's nothing you can do.
Right. And there's one other thing that Ted is kind of banking on at this point.
Yes, sir.
The double jeopardy clause. Basically, a person cannot be tried for the exact same crime twice. So he's already been tried for the attempted murder of Jennifer. Can't happen again. Even if Beecham's correct on this, he can't pursue it because Ted's already been tried and acquitted. Can't be tried again. But
however,
there's a little loophole here.
Yes.
It's a different crime
throughout the legal system.
Jennifer's officially dead now, and it's a direct result of the gunshot. Ted can actually be charged with murder instead of attempted murder.
You see? Technically a different charge.
They can test the ballistics and fingerprints on the bullet from Jennifer's head and the gun, and Nunnally's gun, and find out if there are fingerprints on that bullet and on that gun that match Ted Crawford. And guess what? That's what happens.
Yep.
That's exactly what happens. They find the fingerprints on the gun, they find the fingerprints on the bullet, and the rest is history. I mean, they go to a second trial. The second trial is really actually pretty boring.
They have damning evidence.
Yeah, damning evidence.
Ted, he basically admits in open court to what happened. And so subsequently he was sentenced to life in prison on December 18th of 2007. So, a couple months after.
Yeah, and like I said, really nothing of consequence happened. All the weird stuff happens in the first trial, and then the second one's just mostly boilerplate stuff, and he gets sentenced. So that is the case of Jennifer Crawford, how she died, what happened in this crazy, crazy case. Should we just give a summary of what actually happened? I know I just kind of did this, but maybe just to clarify one last time, a rundown of what happened in this case that led to this woman's death. Ted Crawford one day snuck into Jennifer Crawford and Rob Nunnally's getaway resort, stole Rob Nunnally's gun and replaced it with his own that had been never used and did not have his fingerprints on it while they were together outside. There's video evidence that confirms Ted was on the property on the day of the shooting. Ted returns home before Jennifer on the night of April 20th, 2007. Jennifer returns a little bit later. Ted shoots her in the head and fires 3 additional shots, which is all overheard by the gardener who reports it. The bullet and evidence from this crime remains in Jennifer's skull as long as she's alive and in a coma. Can't be recovered. No fingerprints can be checked, anything like that. So the gardener calls the police. The police respond, and then Nunnally comes a little bit later due to the potential hostage situation, and while inside gets in a scuffle with Ted after he discovers that it was actually Jennifer who was shot, and this is his lover, and that Ted shot her, and now she's in a coma. So once he discovers that, the scuffle breaks out. During the scuffle, Ted switches the guns back, so now Ted has his own clean gun, and Nunnally has the one that actually shot Jennifer. And in this case, it looks like maybe Ted was trying to frame Nunnally for the murder, but that just never came to be because Nunnally killed himself. It also could be the reason that he bought the vacation tickets to show, he wouldn't have killed her. That's his alibi. If he's trying to frame Nunnally for the murder, I was going on a trip. Why would I kill her? So those vacation tickets kind of keep coming into the trial or into the case a little bit. Ted gets charged with attempted murder, goes to trial. They're unable to find any substantial evidence against Ted. The confessions that he gave originally, they were deemed coerced since Nunnally was present for both of them, and Nunnally was having an affair with the victim, who happened to be the suspect wife, and so at that time, Ted is acquitted of the charge of attempted murder. Nunley kills himself shortly after the trial, very, very shortly, with the same gun that shot Jennifer. Now, it's kind of poetic, huh?
It's
Same way.
in a way, Romeo and Juliet-esque.
There we go. Yeah, bring them into this.
Poor bastards.
Couple of great kids. And then, while investigating Nunley's suicide, it's discovered that his gun is the same as Ted, and a potential switch may have occurred. Again, Beecham's the only one who thinks this at this time. Everybody else is just kind of moving on with their lives. But as obsessed as Beecham was, this really stuck with him. So he wanted to make sure he got it right, and if there was even a chance that Ted had something to do with this, he was going to pursue it. After Jennifer is euthanized, the bullet can and is removed from the skull and matched with the murder weapon and scanned for prints. And also, now that Jennifer has died as a result of the gunshot, Ted can be charged with murder instead of attempted murder. And so Ted is arrested and charged, and Ted is found guilty and sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah. He confesses basically in the end.
Right.
But found guilty, sentenced to life in prison. He, overarching, didn't work out for the guy.
No, absolutely not. Don't shoot people.
Yeah,
don't shoot people.
We'll get you. The legal system will fuck you up.
Absolutely. Do you have any final thoughts on the case besides don't shoot people?
Mind fuck.
Yeah,
Let me say that again. Mind fuck. It was a complete blindside for me. I just did not expect it to go the way it went, and the pieces involved were just so broad and so expansive. It was hard to keep track of everything, but when it finished up with Ted sentenced to life in prison, I was pretty satisfied with that end result.
Yeah, that's where this should have ended. Obviously, after we've gone through all of this, I kind of had the same thought. In my mind, it was a whirlwind. A lot of stuff going on. I can't believe that they actually tracked this dude down twice and actually got him. You know, it's hard enough to pin something on someone once, and then he gets away, and then they have to do it again, and have a substantial case both times. Just for this, like, I wouldn't be able to handle the world of lawyering. Like, there's so much bullshit in it. Like, this guy clearly did it from the jump. I know we had some theories in the middle, but that was more to play devil's advocate than it was actually what we thought, since we obviously went through the whole case and knew what was going on. But, like, he clearly did it, and if he hadn't been stupid enough to euthanize her, he would have gotten away with it. Even if they made the gun connection after the fact, he would have gotten away with it because you can't try him for the same crime.
Mm-hmm.
So
he would have been long.
It was only
gone.
his own stupidity in euthanizing her.
His arrogance.
That's what it is. His arrogance. That led him to do that, to tie up loose ends or whatever he was trying to do, and it got him in the end, and I'm glad it did.
I completely agree with you. Justice is served in this situation.
Absolutely. So if you guys liked our little foray into the crime podcasting world, let us know on Twitter at APA something. We'll definitely try and do more if you guys liked this. If you didn't, then send us a fuck you on Twitter at APA something, and we'll send you one right back.
Yep.
We've been off for this month, but honestly, or for the month of September, but honestly, a lot of it has been working on this. We knew we were doing this, so we wanted time to put in the work and the research. It's a lot deeper than our usual episodes go, of the 30 minutes to 3 hours of Googling that we do for a usual episode and just our own brain knowledge.
Yeah, I was going to say our residual knowledge from years of being geeks.
From watching a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, dude.
So if you guys like them, we will try and do more, but they will be few and far between just because of how much work goes into them. But if you guys like it, we'll definitely come back for more. If you're a new listener, we've got a lot of great stuff out there. We have a merch store at tpublic.com/APA something. You can check out our merch, buy t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers, like whatever you want our logo on, it's there.
It's fucking there. I got
and it's
a
all
super
good
cool
stuff.
T-shirt. Yeah, the T-shirt I got, I was a bad kid, and I got an APA something T-shirt in purple. It was very nice. It's like purple velvet. This T-shirt is so comfortable.
I've got a hoodie, and I live in Florida, so I haven't been able to wear it yet, but it's coming soon. I'll be able to wear it soon.
Yeah, maybe in like 3 or 4 years.
Well, I meant more like months, but okay, yeah.
I don't know how cold it actually gets in
I mean,
Florida.
it's not a yearly cycle. We still have seasons. The cold one is just very, very short.
What? Give me an example. How cold does it get there?
50. 50
50?
would be
That's
the coldest
Dude, that is
at
shorts
night.
and t-shirt
Oh,
weather here.
absolutely. But you can still rock a hoodie in it. It's a nice lightweight hoodie. Anyway, we're getting off track here. We also have a Patreon page. That's patreon.com/podcast about something with a lot of great bonus content over there. Again, if you're a new listener coming in because this is a crime episode and you like that, we've got a lot of other stuff that you might like too. We do basically any and everything. We do movies, TV, fantasy, fiction, anything you can think of.
We're all over the place.
Sports,
Rap albums.
rap albums,
We
yeah.
got shit out the wazoo, guys. It's
The
fun.
Wah
Check it
fucking
out.
Zoo. Yeah, so check
Wazoo.
out more episodes while you're here. There's definitely something for everyone, and now that we've got crime put on the list as well, there's really something for everyone.
Absolutely.
So thank you for listening. Check out the Patreon page. There's a lot of good stuff over there. And also, let us know on Twitter if you've figured out the little Easter eggs that we snuck into this episode. For only our most eagle-eyed, or I guess eagle-eared listeners, it would be. Hit us at APA something and at alone_podcast if you've figured out what we've done here with the Easter eggs throughout this episode.
And let me just say this. My FBI agent, whoever's listening, you can't guess.
We've got an episode
it's
on
not
that too.
fair. It's not fair, guys. Just saying.
I mean, but we love the interaction too. So FBI, if you want to, NSA, whoever's listening,
hit us up.
Yeah, hit us up. We're there to chat. So again, thanks for listening. And as always, the music for Podcast About Something is provided by those cats.
And you guys stay sassy.
Stay classy.